right, before we take the jetter in the field to do any jetting, we got to do some daily maintenance checks. So let's go under the hood. As we mentioned here, we have a 2-engine, 2-pump system. We also have 2 transmission gearboxes. So let's look at the oil checkpoints on these. Here with the Kawasaki engines, particularly, the yellow cap is your oil fill point, and we have our dipstick. So I pull this out, you can take a look. There shows the low and the high marks. And your oil should be nice and clean like this. If your oil starts to look really dark, you've probably been ignoring it. You want to be changing your oils every 100 hours. And you change the oil filter, which is right down here. You change the oil filter every other oil change. Now there is a break-in that's shorter than that. After about 40 hours, give or take, you want to change the oil. It's 10W40 motor oil, and change the filter. And then again, after that, like I said, it goes every 100 hours, changing the oil filter every other time. Now, moving on to the other points that have oil, we have the transmission gearbox in between. It takes 80-90 gear oil, which is easy to find pretty much anywhere it sells motor oil. And basically you fill the transmission gearbox as well as the water pump, which takes a different oil, half full. And there's a sight glass right down here on the transmission gearbox. You just need to get the oil into that sight glass. Now, some of your older models, if you're seeing this, you might have a plug there and you don't have any sight glass at all, so you just take the plug out and you fill it till you see oil start to drool out of that area and plug it back off. But most of the newer models have a sight glass. You don't want to overfill it, because if you do overfill it with the gear oil on the transmission, it will puke out what it doesn't want out this breather. Okay, so every once in a while we get a call, hey, my transmission's leaking, my gearbox is leaking oil, and it's actually not. They overfilled it and it's just spilling out what it doesn't want. And this is, of course, your fill point, where you're going to unscrew that with a wrench, and that's the point where you'll fill up the oil. The drain plug is underneath it on the bottom, as it is for the engine and the pump. Moving over to the water pumps, or the high pressure pumps, here's the fill point, which is also a breather. If by chance you lose this, you don't want to just stick a pipe plug in there, because then the engine or the pump can't breathe and you could blow out your oil seals. It also has a dipstick, and you want the oil to the top of this little channel. But an easier way to check oil level is with the sight glass, which is right here. And there's one on the back side of the pump that's even easier to see. And basically, again, you want that oil to be about half full on the pump, at least half full on the pump. And if you overfill it, it'll tend to want to blow out the top again, so don't overfill. You're also looking for the color of the oil. If the oil starts to look gray or milky, you want to tag out. Don't take the jetter out. You need to change that oil. And if it keeps getting oil milky really quick, you've probably worn out your seals, high pressure seals in your pump, and you're getting water blow by into the crankcase. That definitely you want to not jet, because you're wiping out the bearings in the back of your pump. You keep good clean oil in this pump, these bearings will last a long, long, long time. Okay, let me show you where you drain your water tank. The main drain here is just past the fuel tank, inside the tongue. Simply pull this out and let her drain before you fill up. Close it up. All right, now that you've checked your oils and they're good, we've got to check our water filter. This is something that gets ignored by a lot of people. It's one of the easiest things you can do to take care of your jetter and make sure that its pumps are not getting starved by a blocked water filter. So we got to reach down in here. We have a lockout valve. If you have a full tank of water, you might want to close this out so you're not dumping water out the filter. And if you look down in here all the way down, this is typically hand tight. And out comes the water filter assembly. Dump out what's in there, and you want to clean anything that's in there out of here. Now you can often rinse this with the drain of the jetter, or if you leave that water open, you can rinse it with the water that's coming out of the strainer body down below. But if you've got some stuff that's stuck in there pretty well, you're going to want to take like a toothbrush or something and clean it out real well. Then you want to make sure that this O-ring seal here is good and no chunks out of the O-ring. I do it by feel. And then you just tighten it up again, hand tight with the good. Make sure it's all the way down, hand snug, and you'll be ready to jet again once you've filled up with water. Okay, last thing we're going to do is check the air filters and the antifreeze level in our engines. So as we work toward the back here, I have an air filter gauge. When this is running, if it's sitting up here, this yellow diaphragm, if it's in the green, our air filters are good. As the air filters, which are behind here, start to get fouled, it's going to pull, when it's running, pull that down, that yellow diaphragm down. When it gets into the red, time to change your air filter. And they're just right in here, pretty simple to pull these snaps back, pull the cover off, and you can pull the filters out. Or you can have a service person do that for you. Last thing to check here is on the back side, we want to make sure that our glycol level for our engines, these are liquid cooled engines, should be up there at about that 2/3 mark here as you're into this whole gauge low high, and that's plenty. This is just an overflow. So you want to make sure that green level is right there. Okay, one thing that you need to check every month is underneath here there's a Zerk fitting to give your axles a shot of lube here. I'm not going to take this off right now, but you'll see there's a grease zerk there. You need a grease gun to do that kind of maintenance.